Hi everyone, this is Jeje and welcome to Be Colorful. Let's continue with the creation of cards using the Tonic Craft Kit 44, the kit of the month of June 2021 from Tonic Studios, with a Christmas theme. The next 6 cards, which will not all be contained in this video, will be dedicated to the use of pattern papers, so as to be able to give you ideas on how to use your colored paper blocks. So, paper pad in hand, and let's start right away with card number 2. First of all, I'm gonna choose one of the pattern papers from the paper pad included in the kit. I want to use these with the trees because I like it a lot. However, it is a quite busy pattern paper, therefore, not being very neutral, it is often very difficult to use this type of papers, simply because we don't know how to combine other elements. Therefore, we should be careful to choose what we're gonna insert in the card. For example, if we want to insert other papers, we can opt for the use of papers that accompany our pattern paper, which show more or less the same color, perhaps monochrome papers. In this way, we will avoid having too many subjects that attract attention and go into conflict. Okay, now I'm going to prepare the card base on white cardstock in standard size, that's 4¼ by 5½ inches. Then I cut out the pattern paper, creating a smaller rectangle than the card base, that is 4 by 5¼ inches. In this way, I'm gonna get some finishing edges that I make from the green cardstock of the kit, by cutting out a rectangle that is 4¼ by 5½ inches. Now I'd like to create a paper banner on the left, for which I'm going to use the iridescent mirror card in shades of green, also included in the kit. With this edge, I slightly break the repetitiveness of the pattern paper, without, however, overdo the card too much, because the iridescent paper has a shade of green. Well, now I'm going to glue the pattern paper on the green panel, and I'm going to cut out the iridescent paper banner, so that it is as long as the pattern paper panel, which is 5¼ inches. Then I glue it on the left side. Let's move on to the sentiment. I'm going to die cut on white cardstock a circle die large enough to hold one of the stamp included in the kit. I'm looking for another circle die slightly larger than the other, because I plan to create finishing borders for the circle that will contain the sentiment. So I'm going to stamp wishes on white cardstock with my clear Versamark ink. As well as the word Christmas from this generic sentiment stamp set. Then I'm going to do a heat embossing with the red glitter embossing powder from the kit. Now, with the smaller circle, I'm going to die cut the sentiment, while with the larger circle die, I'm going to die cut the iridescent paper. Finally, I'm going to glue the sentiment over the iridescent circle. Next, I'm going to create some decorative element, without, however, overloading the card too much. Specifically, I'm going to make a small banner cluster out of various papers, which I'm gonna glue underneath the circle with the sentiment. For one of the banners, I'm going to use the white craft paper with the red foil stripes from the kit, in order to have another detail in red in addition to the sentiment. For the other banner, I'm going to make my own one, cutting out a strip of white cardstock and creating a fishtail on the left end. Then I'm going to die cut a small piece of iridescent paper with one of the decorative dies from the kit. From this piece I make just a very thin strip, cutting out exactly where the die left the lines in the borders. I'm going to glue this thin strip to the white banner. And I decide how to place these three elements, also making some changes. I also decided to cut a small piece of the circle. Since I have several layers of paper, I feel with the touch that by gluing this banner like this, there are too many dents. Then on the back of the banner, I'm going to glue some pieces of cardstock just to keep everything nice and level. Okay, we can stop here, but if we want, we can add some other small decorations, always without overdo the card. For example, with this die set by STENCILS, I'm going to create a few leaves of holly on green cardstock. Then I'm going to glue 3 red gems, which would be holly berries, and we have created a small decoration which embellishes the card a little bit, but doesn't overdo it too much. As a finishing touches, I'm going to add a few drops here and there with the red vintage drop of the kit. And with the Nuvo Aqua Shimmer pen, I'm going to add a little glitter, which is a must for Christmas. For the card number 3, I'm going to use a pattern paper again, but this time we will also create our own pattern paper. I'm gonna use this one here, but you can use whichever you prefer. I'm undecided whether to create a white card base or use one of the ready-made craft paper ones included in the kit. We'll see. In the meantime, I'm going to cut out the pattern paper into a 4 by 5¼ panel. Anyway, the card base will be in standard size, that's 4¼ by 5½ inches. Then on white cardstock I'm going to make another panel about 2 3/4 high. And right on this panel I'm going to create my very own pattern paper. Now I show you how to create a neutral but striking background. Let's take a clear embossing ink and stamps. I'm gonna use the word from the set included in the kit, so I'm gonna create a pattern paper with text, stamping randomly but visually harmonious. I guess you don't see anything. Let's see if you can get a glimpse of the stamps. Yes, a little bit better. I'm going to fill the little gaps between the words, just stamping some little snowflakes here and there. Well, now with a clear embossing powder, I'm going to do the heat embossing technique. I melt the powder with the embossing tool. And here we get a neutral paper pattern with a beautiful glossy finish, which can accompany any pattern paper of our paper pad. I'm going to trim off the panel to be as wide as the green pattern paper panel with the snowflakes, that is 4 inches. Next, I'm going to choose the paper to add finishing borders, which will better define the panels. I'm gonna use the iridescent one, while I'm going to use the white pearlescent paper for the edges of the green panel. In the meantime, I decided to use a white card base, so I'm making a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 standard card. After that, I cut out the white pearlescent paper into a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches panel. As I only need to make some finishing borders, I'm going to remove the central part, so I save some paper. I'm going to glue everything on the card base. Adding some scraps of cardstock in the center, so just to keep nice and level. On the panel created by me, however, I'm going to glue strips of iridescent paper on the upper and lower sides. After cutting the excesses, I move on to create the sentiment using the Christmas die together with the coordinate die and die cutting on white pearlescent paper. In this way I get only the outlines. Then on white cardstock I'm going to die cut only the base of the word, while on the iridescent paper I'm going to die cut only the internal part. I'm going to glue the pearlescent outlines onto the white base and the internal part with the paper piecing or inlay die cutting technique. I'm going to complete the sentiment by stamping Merry Little from the set included in the kit on white cardstock with the VersaFine Onyx Black. Then I heat set it with a clear embossing powder. I cut out the strip, leaving just a very thin white border, and I also remove the word little. I finish gluing everything, using some foam pad to attach the sentiment, just to add a nice dimension. I finish the card by adding some iridescent and white pearlescent snowflakes, using some dies I have in my stash. I also add a few drops of pearlescent white Nuvo crystal drop, and the third card is finished. And these were two other ideas on how to use pattern papers. In the first video we created a gift box card, a way to use both pattern papers and ribbons. Today, however, I have given you an idea on how to use busy pattern papers and on how to create your own neutral pattern papers to accompany the ready-made pattern papers you have in your stash. In the next video we will continue with the pattern papers. For now, thank you for journeying with me. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and leave me a thumbs up if you'd like. See you next time. Bye bye and be colorful!